Welcome to Second Story's Beacon of Hope Breakfast. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We deeply appreciate it. I'm Julie Pangelinan, and I'm honored to serve as the Vice President of Second Story's Board of Directors. Like many people who have lived for some time in this area, I first became aware of Second Story, which was at the time Alternative House, by driving by Second Story for teens in crisis on Gallows Road. I always wondered what Alternative House was all about. I first became involved with Second Story when a work colleague invited me to a previous iteration of this Beacon of Hope breakfast a number of years ago. I have known, as I'm sure many of you have known, teens who could have benefited from an organization like this. A close childhood friend of my oldest son is a good example. The two of them were a hilariously mismatched pair because he was quiet and nerdy and she was an outgoing tomboy. But over time, they became very close and extremely loyal to one another. Both played cello in their school orchestra and sat side by side for years sharing the same music stand. Yet, even though they lived in the same area and went to the same school, their lives were vastly different. He had a financially stable home with two parents who were very involved in everything he did. She lived with a single mother who was a very decent, kind, and hardworking person, but struggled with mental health issues and was always in financial crisis. Our families became friends, and it was painful to watch their situation deteriorate until it became untenable. We helped as much as we could, but it became clear that the girl's life was spinning out of control, and eventually social services had to step in. It's an example of how random life can be. She and my son were born around the same time, yet their situations were so different. Nobody chooses to be born into circumstances like that. It's just an unfair accident of birth. Fortunately, the story has a happy ending. Mother and daughter are now reconciled, and my son's friend is doing extremely well as an adult. She was lucky. The right people at the right time with the right resources were there. But not everyone is so lucky. That's why I was so shocked to find out that Second Story was the only homeless teen shelter in the area, and impressed to learn how the organization evolved over the years to add so many other great programs to help homeless and disadvantaged youth. I found it hard to believe then, and still do now, that in an area as rich as Fairfax County, there are so many youth who don't have a place to live, a place to do homework, a support system to help them succeed. These are young people from our own neighborhoods. These are our kids. I frankly find it shameful that a non-government organization like this needs to exist at all, but it clearly does. That is why I initially got involved and have stayed involved with Second Story for so many years. Second Story's vision is of a community where every young person is safe, lives in a nurturing environment, and has the opportunity to reach their full potential. That's why we're here this morning, to give voice to the young people who have been supported through our programs and help ensure homeless youth and youth in crisis have access to our services for years to come.
Welcome. My name is Judy Ditman. I'm the CEO here at Second Story. The theme of this morning's breakfast is Together We Do More. For me, that was brought home in a very personal way this last year. Shortly after last year's breakfast, my husband Jim entered VCU Medical Center in Richmond to have a bone marrow transplant. He was in the hospital for 6 weeks, and then we had to stay in Richmond for 6 months because they didn't want him more than 15 minutes away from the hospital. And I was left wondering, how can I do this? How can I keep Second Story going, be there for my husband Jim, live in Richmond, do all the things that you have to do? He had to have someone with him 24 hours a day, all of the special food, all of the cleaning. How could I do it? And the answer is I couldn't. But we had friends, family, neighbors, all of whom stepped in and helped me so that I could keep doing this. Because as important as my husband is, the work we do here at Second Story is also important. Together, we did more than I could ever have done alone. To keep this organization going, I also had help. I had my coworkers, the board, volunteers. They all stepped in and did more than their share so that together we could do more, because I know that they too recognize how critical our work is. Second Story is strong, and my husband is getting better. But without everyone coming together, I wouldn't be able to say that. And keeping Second Story strong is critical. I know you read the news or you hear it on TV. You hear about teens being trafficked. You know that too many of our teens face anxiety and depression. In fact, the most recent survey of Fairfax County high school students showed 15% had contemplated suicide last year. And too many of our young people are putting their lives at risk vaping, thinking it's the cool thing to do. I'm sure you worry about these things with your own children, grandchildren, or the children of your friends and neighbors. Second Story programs address these issues. Sometimes we're here for that typical suburban teenager who got mad at his or her parents and ran away. But let me tell you, those youth are at unbelievably high risk of being trafficked. Second Story for Teens in Crisis can prevent that. We offer a safe place to stay and counseling to reunite youth with their families. Or for that teen who's stressed out by trying to succeed in school and maybe faces bullying from their peers, we have counselors in our after-school programs and a hotline that's answered 24 hours a day, 365 days a year by trained staff and volunteers. Sometimes just having someone to talk to can make all the difference between feeling overwhelmed and being able to cope. And I'm sorry for the parents in the room, hard as this may seem, sometimes teens don't want to talk to their families. They need the perspective of an outsider or someone like Second Story's trained counselors. Second Story is here at those critical moments, offering safe havens and showing youth that they do have an opportunity to grow and thrive, no matter how hard it may seem in that moment. This past year, we provided safe shelter for 205 young people. Some of them were in crisis and had run away and were in danger of being trafficked, and they deemed it somewhere safe to stay and trained counselors to talk with. And we were there for them with safe shelter and support at Second Story for Teens in Crisis. But I want to tell you, we don't just pick up the pieces. Second Story is here to make sure it doesn't happen in the first place. All of our programs offer something that's called prevention services. Last year, we touched the lives of another 2,000 young people in our community with counselors trained to talk effectively to young people about the risks facing them, whether it's from trafficking, vaping, bullying, anxiety and depression, or any one of the other myriad problems that teens face at one time or another. This critical work must continue. We have to keep our young people safe. And so this morning we are launching a 3-year campaign to raise $4 million. Our goal is to raise 10% of that amount by the end of this breakfast. Those who stepped up and provided our leadership and sponsorship gifts believe in that goal. They recognize that together we can do more. We're doing great work, but there is so much more that needs to be done, and it has to be the community that comes together to do it. The federal government hasn't increased fundings to programs like ours in over 15 years, and Fairfax County is under ever-tightening fiscal constraints. But I'm here to tell you this morning that that can't stop us. As of this morning, there are 30 young people who are waiting for a home in one of our programs. 30 young people, many of them with children, who don't have somewhere safe to stay. Last year, I stood here and asked, can we accept this as a community? The answer then, as it is now, is no. Those 30 young people living in unsafe situations are at high risk of being trafficked. The instability they face on a daily basis fuels anxiety and depression and thoughts of suicide. Every day they're out there is another day that they're at risk. Together, we can do more to make sure that they're safe. We need more counselors. We need more case managers. We need the ability to provide more rent subsidies, and we need a campus where we can do more by putting everything in one location. Together, we can do this. If we as a community commit and invest now, together we can ensure that these young people are safe and that they have the tools to grow up to become successful adults and grow up in the loving environment they deserve. Isn't that something we want for all of our families? I know it's what I want for mine, and this last year brought it home to me. Alone, we can't do it, but together we can do more. Thank you.
I came to the United States 3 years ago. I didn't know any English, and I was at home most of the time. I didn't go out or anything, but when I got to school, there was when the real test started. When all my teachers were talking to me, nobody knew Spanish, and the people who knew Spanish preferred to speak in English, and I completely understand, because this is America at the end. But it was really hard because I didn't feel like myself. For a moment, I felt like I didn't fit in, no way. I was just like home, school, school, home. And yes, I knew I lived here near Coolmore and everything, but I really didn't went outside or try to do anything for my community. So my friend, one of my friends I met her through the ESOL program too. So she told me that she was working here. This year I decided to come, and things has changed a lot. I feel like I'm part of a community now. I don't know what we will be without Teen Center, because they are just a place in which I just can come after school and just feel like something is okay for once, even if everything is going or falling apart on the outside. Here is a place in which I feel safe. There are things that I do here that actually matters, like life skills and leadership development and all those things. So right now I'm working in this career research, we can call it like that. So we are trying to find a job that we want to work on. We are finding some companies that we want to work for, and we are trying to find the descriptions and all the things that we need to get there. I'm a senior at high school. I'm gonna be a first generation student. So yeah, I'm gonna be the first in my family to pursue a post-secondary education. I want to become a prosecutor. That's my goal, and I want to help. I want to give back to my community, not only because they have helped me, but I think that we need more people to stand up and defend the defenseless. So the second story, the teen centers, everything is just, I don't know what life will be like without them.
I moved to 2015 in the US. After I came here, we have a little bit problem with my stepmother. So me and my dad, we talked. He told me to move out, and then he got a house from. I think he knows her. She's not really my cousin, but he knows her. And then he asked us to live with her. Then I went to her house. There was a living room, and then I used to pay her $350 a month, and I started working every day. I can say every day. I don't have enough time to do my homework, to study. I don't even have to go to the library. I have to graduate from high school. That was my, no matter what happened. But thanks God, I got second story that helped me to achieve my goal. When I found out I got accepted, I was so excited with it. I was really excited. After I got accepted, one of my case manager, her name is Crystal. So she was working hard with me. She helped me to find house near to close to my school. The second story for me is like a family. I never talked with my dad 2 or 3 years. Never ever. Never texted me, he never called me. So whenever I need help, whenever I need help, the support, I just talk to the second story with my case manager.
Well, I tend to see myself, or I try to see myself as a mentor rather than a social worker. I try to level up with them and try to give them all the advice they can, because I've been there, done that. So just sitting down with them and going through whatever issues they have at the moment, helping them brainstorm ideas, bringing up suggestions on how they can do things better, teaching them life skills. It's very important. Getting the kids to be more independent. Because if you look at their situation, they're homeless at a young age. They're still trying to finish high school.
She's taught me a lot of things, to be honest. I didn't know how to use a credit card. I didn't know how to use respect, be on time. I started saving money, started getting my car. I never had a car 2 years ago. Now I have a car.
I would say the priority, the most important thing is second story being able to pay for the rent. Because if you think about it, you go to school full time and you can't really work more than 30 hours a week. And that doesn't allow them to make enough to be able to pay for rent.
They pay me rent at least 70%, which means I don't work a lot of hours. And I'm gonna have time to study or to do my homework to bring my grade up. And I'm gonna have time to talk to my teachers after school.
Abel has always been focused on school and his education, because to him it's like, if I don't get my diploma, it's like I can't do anything, I need to have my diploma so I can go to college, get higher education so I can get the job and the life that I want. And I think that's great that he just sees the big picture, and he's been really focused.
I wanna be a web developer, and I wanna have a great job and help my family.
Bell, I would say is definitely confident. He knows what he's doing. He's very smart. Over the year and a half that we worked together, I can say I've seen him evolve and take more control of his life. Yeah.
When I came here, I had a goal. I have a big goal. Just getting a good job and helping my family. It's a big support with me. It's a big support. It's a lot of things changed, to be honest. It's a lot of.
Good morning. My name is Leona Riddle. I'm a mom, a student, and employee. I'm a daughter, a friend, and a fiance. I stand here this morning proud of who I am and proud of how I got here. By looking at me now, you might not know that I have experienced homelessness. I have been a college dropout, and I have been a desperate single mom. It's hard to say I'm thankful for these challenges. This wasn't part of it. Because it's hard to really feel thankful for trauma or pain. But I'm thankful that they brought me to where I am today. More so, I am thankful for the people and experiences that took me from those low points to where I am now. I am thankful for all the people, moments, and sometimes small in their own regard, who walked alongside me and came together like puzzle pieces to help create something truly amazing. The beautiful life I now get to lead. I felt like I had a pretty normal upbringing, but looking back, it's clear that there were some issues. My parents divorced when I was young, and my mom, sister, brother, and I began to live in subsidized housing. My mom was very strict, and I wasn't allowed to hang out with my peers very much. I never went to birthday parties or sleepovers. This sheltered life felt comfortable for me as a child, but as I began to realize its downfalls as I grew older. I decided to go to college out of state at Morgan State University, and it was my first time out on my own. I had never been taught how to set my own boundaries. They had always been set for me. And in a world with seemingly no rules, I crumbled. When the year ended, I knew I had failed. and I knew I wouldn't be going back. I had partied my way out of college. When I returned home for the summer, the tension between me and my mom began to escalate. I wanted to hold on to the freedom I had discovered in college, and my mom didn't like me going out at night. So she made a habit of locking me out when I returned home. So I moved into the spare room of another family's home and enrolled at Northern Virginia Community College for my sophomore year. Not long after leaving my mom's house, I found out I was pregnant. I needed to provide for my baby, so I dropped out of Nova and I started working full-time. My boyfriend wasn't working and things were tight. I felt like I had no vision, no dreams, and few options. I thought things were as bad as they could get. But just weeks before my due date, I was both fired from my job and forced to move out of the room I was renting. There was only one place left to go. My mom said I could stay with her, but she made one thing clear. There would never be two moms in her house. On September 10th, 2015, my daughter Nadia was born, and all the pain was forgotten for a moment. Things with me and my mom were sweet, but only for a few weeks. I couldn't do anything right in my mom's eyes. One day, when I left and she didn't want me to go, I returned to find my things in her front yard. Over the next couple of years, I was in and out of homeless shelters, and my hope eroded. My boyfriend was a heavy drinker and emotionally abusive. I knew I needed to leave him, but I wanted my daughter to know her dad, and I didn't want to be going through everything alone. I was working, trying to support my daughter, but I still wasn't making it on my own. One day, a woman named Sarah came to the shelter from an organization called Second Story. I met with her to learn if my boyfriend and I would be eligible for the Second Story for Homeless Youth program. Everyone at the shelter wanted to be placed in a program like this, so I was hopeful. I knew it could turn things around for me. Sarah sat me down and gave me what at the time felt like bad news. You can be a part of the program, she told me, but your boyfriend isn't eligible. You have a decision to make. You make that decision for you and your daughter, or you lose it and go with him. She didn't speak to me like a homeless person. She didn't patronize me. She spoke to me like a mom who needed to get myself together and a person who had worth. For the first time, I saw it, and someone else saw it in me. I deserved safety, and so did my daughter. I deserved support. I deserved a chance, and I deserved an opportunity to write a second story. That moment changed everything. Okay, I responded. And with that, Second Story became one of the most important things in my life. Second Story helped me find an apartment. They helped me find another job and work my way up. They taught me to budget, to break down my bills. As long as I was willing, Second Story helped me completely. They never failed to help me take the next step. I don't like thinking about how different my life would be without Second Story. I look back on myself a few years ago, living in a homeless shelter, struggling to be a mom, and remember feeling like I was in sort of a daze, caught up in depression, self-doubt, and hopelessness. I'm not sure how, when, or even if I would have gotten out of that place without Second Story. Second Story taught me to better myself. They helped me see that I'm worth more than the manipulative and abusive people in my past told me I was. They helped me see that my dreams could be in reach. I am thrilled to say that I am now self-sufficient, which was one of my biggest goals. I work full-time at a job that is helping fund my education, and I can finally see my path to becoming a family lawyer, which was the career I dreamt of when I first went to college, and I'm taking the steps to get there. My next goal is to be financially stable and to be able to send my daughter to afford to send my daughter to private school. I'm engaged now too, to a person who treats me like I deserve to be treated. I couldn't do it alone. I believe I needed Second Story. I needed Sarah. I needed the staff at the shelter. I needed my daughter. Together, they helped me create a beautiful life. Now I see my role shifting. I see myself becoming one of those puzzle pieces, becoming part of this community of supporters for other young people like me. I am thankful for Second Story's help, but I was also ready to graduate from the program because it had meant I had done everything I had set out to do. I couldn't be more excited to be writing my second story, to be raising my daughter to face a hopeful future, and to take on the role I'd always wanted, a role Second Story further inspired me to fulfill as a member of a support system for those who need help the most. Thank you.